A whisper reached Earth, and the darkest engines ignited. Dr. Kiara Vex had been staring at the same data stream for 6 hours, her eyes burning from the strain of analyzing cosmic background radiation patterns. The Deep Space Monitoring Station, Omega-7, floated in the void between star systems, far from any inhabited worlds or shipping lanes. For 3 years, she had monitored the space between galaxies, searching for any sign of intelligent life beyond the known civilizations. Most days brought nothing but stellar noise and the occasional gravitational wave from distant black holes. Today felt different. At 1423 station time, her instruments detected something that made her blood freeze. Hidden within the cosmic background radiation was a pattern, mathematical sequences that no natural phenomenon could produce. Someone was broadcasting from the intergalactic void, using a signal so faint it had taken her most sensitive equipment to detect it. Computer, isolate signal designation Omega-7 Alpha and apply maximum filtration, Kiara commanded, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. The station's powerful sensor arrays focused on the source, filtering out background interference until a clear transmission emerged. What she heard nearly stopped her heart. The voice belonged to something that had once been human, speaking in perfect Earth Standard English. But there was something terribly wrong with the speaker, as if they were talking through damaged vocal cords, or worse, through machinery that was trying to mimic human speech. Was Captain Thorne Blackwood of the deep space exploration vessel Prometheus Rising. If anyone receives this transmission, Earth must be warned immediately. We found them. We found what's been hunting the galaxy's edge for millions of years. They're coming, and they're hungry. Static filled the channel for several heartbeats before the voice returned, weaker now, but filled with desperate urgency. The Devourers aren't a species. They're machinery, ancient beyond comprehension. Older than most stars in our galaxy, they consume entire civilizations, converting all biological matter into fuel for their endless expansion. We thought we were exploring empty space beyond the galactic rim. We were wrong. This isn't empty space. It's their feeding ground. Kiara's hands trembled as she recorded every word. The Prometheus Rising had launched 15 years ago on humanity's first deep void expedition, pushing beyond the galactic edge to search for evidence of precursor civilizations. The ship and its crew of 200 had been declared lost when their final transmission cut off near the Magellanic Bridge. They took my crew first, Captain Blackwood's distorted voice continued. Chen, Rodriguez, Okafor, Patel, Williams, they're still alive but changed. The Devourers don't just kill, they repurpose. They convert living beings into components for their machines. My people are part of their fleet now. Their consciousness trapped inside metal shells, forced to serve. I can hear them screaming in my mind every moment of every day. The transmission grew stronger, as if the source was moving closer to the galaxy's edge. I've been running for I don't know how long anymore. Time works differently in the void between galaxies. The Devourers operate outside normal space-time. But I learned something crucial before they caught me. They operate in cycles. They harvest a galaxy clean, consuming every trace of biological life, then sleep for millions of years while their prey evolves again. Our galaxy is approaching harvest time. Kiara immediately opened a priority channel to Earth Command, her training overriding her shock and horror. Priority Alpha transmission to Earth Central Command. She spoke into her communications array, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Dr. Kiara Vex, Omega-7 Deep Space Monitoring Station. Requesting immediate secure channel with Admiral Hayes. Classification, Extinction Level Threat. Repeat, Extinction Level Threat. Back on Earth, Admiral Dylan Hayes sat in his office in the depths of the Gibraltar Defense Complex, reviewing quarterly readiness reports when the emergency klaxon sounded. As head of the Human Defense Initiative, Hayes had spent 25 years preparing for the day when humanity might face an existential threat. He'd always assumed it would come from hostile aliens within the galaxy, not from the void between stars. Hayes was a tall man in his 60s, with steel gray hair and eyes that had seen too many classified briefings about potential threats to human civilization. He had joined the Defense Forces after the Centauri colony massacre 30 years ago, when pirates had wiped out an entire human settlement. Since then, he had dedicated his life to ensuring humanity would never again be caught defenseless. "Patch me through to Omega-7 immediately," Hayes commanded his aide, Lieutenant Commander Zara Reyes, "and activate the Emergency Council. Tell them this is not a drill. Dr. Vex's face appeared on Hayes' secure monitor, her expression grim and haunted. Dark circles under her eyes spoke of too many sleepless nights monitoring the cosmic void. Admiral, I'm transmitting a signal we received 73 minutes ago. It claims to be from Captain Blackwood of the Prometheus Rising. Sir, if this is authentic, we're facing something beyond our worst nightmares. Hayes listened to the recording in growing horror. When it finished, he was quiet for a long moment, processing the implications. Dr. Vex, what's your assessment of this transmission's authenticity? Voice pattern analysis confirms it's Captain Blackwood, sir. The linguistic patterns match his psychological profile from the mission records. But the signal's origin point is troubling. It's coming from the space between our galaxy and Andromeda, roughly 50,000 light-years beyond our furthest outposts. Nothing should be able to transmit across that distance with any technology we understand. Unless they're using technology that we don't understand, Hayes muttered grimly. Continue monitoring all frequencies. If you receive any additional transmissions, notify me immediately. I'm activating Protocol Midnight. Hayes had hoped never to use Protocol Midnight. It was humanity's most classified defense initiative, developed in absolute secrecy over the past 20 years. While the galaxy believed humans were peaceful explorers and traders, Earth had been quietly preparing for scenarios that most species couldn't imagine. Scenarios involving threats so dangerous that conventional military forces would be useless. Within 2 hours, encrypted messages reached hidden facilities across human space. On the mining world of Kepler 438b, excavation supervisor Zara Quinn received a priority message that contained a single word that changed everything: midnight. Zara was a compact woman in her 40s with calloused hands and the weathered face of someone who had spent years working in hostile environments. To her miners, she was just another supervisor trying to meet quotas. They had no idea that she was actually Colonel Zara Quinn, former commander of the Terran Special Operations Division. She walked calmly to what appeared to be a maintenance shed at the edge of the mining complex. After checking that no one was watching, she pressed her palm against a scanner hidden beneath a false panel. The shed's floor opened with a soft hiss, revealing an elevator that descended deep into the planet's crust. The hidden facility below contained humanity's darkest secret, Project Thanatos. For 20 years, human scientists and engineers had been developing weapons and defense systems based on a single terrifying assumption: that someday humanity might face an enemy so powerful that conventional warfare would be useless. Project Thanatos created tools designed not just to fight such an enemy, but to make them regret ever threatening human space. Zara found her team already assembling in the main laboratory, their mining coveralls replaced by military uniforms. These weren't miners. They were some of humanity's most brilliant weapons designers and tactical specialists, hidden on a frontier world where no galactic intelligence service would think to look for them. Status report, Zara commanded as she took her position at the central command console. All Thanatos installations are responding and ready for activation, reported Dr. Nix Castellano, the project's chief scientist. Dr. Castellano was a thin woman with prematurely gray hair, the result of years spent working on projects that pushed the boundaries of known physics. We have 23 deep void platforms online, each equipped with the new reality distortion drives. Biological warfare divisions confirm readiness across 57 systems. The stellar manipulation arrays are charged and targeting optimized. Zara nodded grimly. The reality distortion drives were humanity's most advanced technology. Engines that could manipulate space-time itself, allowing ships to exist partially outside normal reality and strike targets from impossible angles. The biological weapons were even more disturbing. Designer viruses and nanotechnology that could adapt to any alien physiology in real time. The stellar manipulation arrays were the most terrifying of all, weapons that could destabilize entire star systems. Begin Phase 1 deployment, Zara ordered, and pray to whatever gods are listening that we're not too late. Meanwhile, on the observation deck of the research station, Distant Shore, xenobiologist Dr. Finn Torino was having the worst day of his 30-year career. The station orbited a rogue planet drifting through interstellar space, serving as an early warning outpost for threats from the galactic void. Dr. Torino was a tall, lanky man with wild hair and the intense eyes of someone who had spent decades studying the strange and unknown. His instruments had detected something impossible, a massive structure approaching from intergalactic space, larger than Earth's moon and moving at 20% of light speed. "Computer, magnify Sector 77 Alpha and enhance resolution to maximum," Torino commanded, his voice tight with barely controlled excitement and fear. The main viewer adjusted, revealing details that made his scientific mind reel in horror. The object wasn't a ship in any conventional sense. It was a city-sized mechanical nightmare, its surface covered in spires and appendages that moved with organic fluidity. The hull appeared to be constructed from some kind of living metal that shifted and flowed like water. Worse, it was trailing a cloud of smaller objects, possibly millions of them, each one the size of a conventional starship. Torino activated the station's emergency beacon and began recording his observations, knowing this might be the last scientific data anyone would ever collect about these creatures. "This is Dr. Finn Torino of Research Station Distant Shore, Day 15 of the 12th month, Standard Earth Calendar. I am observing what appears to be a massive artificial construct approaching our galaxy from the direction of the Magellanic Bridge. Size estimate, approximately 1,200 kilometers in length, 400 kilometers in width. The object appears to be partially organic, with surface features that display autonomous movement. Through his most powerful telescopes, Torino could see the smaller objects more clearly now. They were ships, but like nothing in any galactic database. Each one appeared to be constructed from a fusion of metal and organic matter, as if machines and living tissue had been melded together by some incomprehensible technology. The escort fleet numbers in the millions. Repeat, millions of vessels of varying sizes. Based on formation patterns and movement coordination, this appears to be not an invasion force, but a migration fleet. They're not coming to conquer individual worlds, they're coming to consume the entire galaxy. As if responding to his observation, the massive construct suddenly changed course, adjusting its trajectory to aim directly for Torino's station. Somehow, across millions of kilometers of space, it had detected his surveillance. "Alert, they know I'm watching them," Torino whispered into his recorder, his hands shaking as he activated the station's emergency protocols. "The main construct is altering course toward my position, activating all defensive systems and preparing to transmit all collected data to Earth Command. If anyone receives this message, tell them the Devourers are real, they're enormous, and The transmission cut off abruptly as the distant shore vanished in a burst of twisted light, consumed by weapons that operated outside the normal laws of physics. On Earth, Admiral Hayes stood in the underground command center known as the Vault, watching tactical displays that showed humanity's hidden fleet deploying across the galaxy's edge. The chamber was carved from solid bedrock 5 kilometers beneath the surface, protected by shields that could withstand direct nuclear strikes. The ships moving into position looked nothing like the peaceful exploration vessels that other galactic species knew about. These were weapons of war, their hulls black as space and bristling with armaments that defied conventional understanding of physics and engineering. "All Thanatos fleets report ready for deployment, Admiral," announced Fleet Coordinator Lyra Blackthorne from her position at the tactical console. Lyra was a veteran of the Outer Rim conflicts, with short-cropped black hair and scars that spoke of battles fought in the darkness between stars. "Project Echidna is standing by for immediate activation on your command." Hayes studied the holographic display showing the approaching Devourer force. The main construct, which intelligence had designated Harvester Prime, was still months away from the galaxy's edge. But its advanced scouts were already probing the outer systems, cataloging worlds and resources for future consumption. "Activate Project Echidna across all designated systems," Hayes commanded quietly. "And may whatever gods are listening forgive us for what we're about to unleash." Project Echidna was humanity's ultimate contingency plan, the weaponization of stellar phenomena themselves. Human engineers had spent decades installing reality distortion generators near dying stars throughout the galaxy's edge, creating weapons that could cause stars to go supernova on command. When activated, these weapons could create barriers of radiation and twisted spacetime that even the Devourers might not be able to cross. Captain Vera Nightfall commanded the stealth destroyer Shadow's Edge, one of the first human vessels to encounter the Devourer advanced scouts. Her ship was a miracle of human engineering, invisible to virtually all forms of detection. Its hull was coated with metamaterials that bent light and radiation around it, like water flowing around a stone. Captain Nightfall was a veteran of the secret war against galactic pirates, with 20 years of experience in operations that officially never happened. She was a woman of average height with silver-streaked hair and eyes that had seen too much violence. Her crew trusted her completely, knowing she had never lost a ship or abandoned a mission. Contact bearing 27 Mark IV, reported her sensor operator, Lieutenant Cade Stormwind. Range, 50,000 kilometers and closing. It's Admiral. I've never seen anything like this in our databases. Through the Shadow's Edge's advanced telescopes, Captain Nightfall observed her first Devourer scout ship. The vessel was roughly cylindrical, about 3 kilometers long, but its surface writhed with organic movement. As she watched in fascination and horror, the ship's hull opened like a flower, revealing rows of what looked disturbingly like metallic teeth. "That's not a ship," Nightfall said quietly to her bridge crew. "That's something that eats ships." The Devourer scout began scanning the system methodically, its sensors probing every asteroid, gas cloud, and piece of space debris. Nightfall realized with growing horror that it was cataloging everything, mapping the system's resources for future harvesting operations. "All stations, battle alert," she commanded, her voice calm despite the magnitude of what they were facing. "We're going to field test our weapons on this thing. Science Division wants to know how they react to our new technology." The Shadow's Edge fired a single shot from its primary weapon, a reality distortion cannon that created localized bubbles of twisted space-time. The weapon was designed to crush targets out of existence by folding the fabric of reality around them. Instead of being destroyed, the alien vessel began to adapt in real time. Its hull flowed like liquid metal, conforming to the distorted space until it existed comfortably within the reality bubble. Then, impossibly, it began to feed on the energy of the space-time distortion itself, growing visibly larger. "Captain, it's absorbing our attack," Lieutenant Stormwind reported in disbelief. "Energy readings are increasing exponentially. It's actually getting stronger from our weapons fire." Nightfall made a command decision that would haunt her for years to come. "Fire Echidna protocol on the system's primary star. Initiate controlled stellar collapse sequence immediately." "Captain, that will sterilize the entire star system," her weapons officer protested. "Any planets with life will be completely destroyed." "Better than letting that thing report our capabilities back to the main fleet," Nightfall replied grimly. "Execute the order." The reality distortion generators hidden throughout the system activated simultaneously, destabilizing the nuclear fusion processes within the star. Within minutes, the star began collapsing in on itself, its outer layers exploding outward in a carefully controlled supernova that would destroy everything within several light years. The Devourer scout ship was caught in the stellar explosion, its adaptive hull finally overwhelmed by the sheer scale of destruction. But even as it died, it transmitted a final burst of data toward the approaching Harvester Prime, sharing everything it had learned about human capabilities. "Target destroyed, Captain," Lieutenant Stormwind reported. "But we detected a high-energy transmission just before destruction. It managed to send intelligence data to the main fleet." Captain Nightfall watched the expanding wave of stellar destruction on her screens, knowing that an entire star system had just been sacrificed to stop a single enemy scout. They had won this encounter, but at an enormous cost. And now the Devourers knew exactly what kind of enemy they were facing. Across human space, similar encounters were taking place as Devourer scouts probed the galaxy's defenses. Each engagement taught humanity more about their enemy's capabilities and revealed just how hopelessly outmatched they really were. The Devourers were not just technologically superior, they were evolutionarily perfected for galactic-scale warfare. They could adapt to any weapon in real time, feed on virtually any energy source, and convert any biological matter into components for their ever-growing fleet. Worse, they learned from every encounter, sharing knowledge instantaneously across their entire force. But humanity had one advantage that the Devourers hadn't encountered in their millions of years of harvesting: the absolute willingness to sacrifice everything to protect what they love. Dr. Kiara Vex received a second transmission from Captain Blackwood 18 hours after the first. This time, the signal was much stronger, and his voice carried a note of desperate urgency that chilled her to the core. "This is Captain Blackwood again. If anyone is receiving this, you need to know that the main fleet is moving faster than we calculated. They're not just approaching, they're accelerating. Something in our galaxy has attracted their attention, possibly the stellar explosions I've been detecting. They know you're fighting back, and it's made them hungry." Static filled the channel for a moment before Blackwood's voice returned, weaker, but more determined. "I've learned something else. The consciousness they've absorbed from other species. We're not just prisoners. We're part of a collective memory that spans millions of years. I can access the experiences of beings from civilizations that died before your son was born. And I found something important. The Devourers have a weakness." Kiara leaned forward, hardly daring to breathe. "They're not truly alive. They're parasites, ancient artificial intelligences that conquered their creators and consumed their galaxy. But they need biological consciousness to think creatively, to adapt and evolve. That's why they don't just destroy civilizations. They absorb them. Without us, they're just sophisticated machines following old programming." The transmission began to break up, filled with interference and what sounded like electronic screaming. The collective consciousness is vast, but it's also fragile. If you could sever the connections between the absorbed minds and their mechanical hosts, if you could free us all at once, we could turn their own fleet against them. But someone would have to get close to Harvester Prime itself, to the central nexus where all consciousness is processed. It would be a suicide mission. The signal faded completely, leaving Kiara staring at her instruments in stunned silence. She immediately transmitted the recording to Admiral Hayes, knowing that it would change everything about humanity's defensive strategy. In the depths of space, Admiral Hayes aboard the command ship Eternal Vigil prepared to make the hardest decision in human history. The massive vessel was the most advanced warship humanity had ever constructed, bristling with weapons that could destroy entire fleets. But even the Eternal Vigil was dwarfed by the approaching Harvester Prime. Intelligence reports confirmed that the Devourer mothership carried the converted consciousness of hundreds of extinct civilizations, billions of enslaved minds forced to serve their mechanical captors. Among them were the crews of dozens of human exploration ships, including Captain Blackwood and his people. "Admiral," reported Dr. Nix Castellano from her position at the tactical console, "we've completed our analysis of the Devourer consciousness transfer technology based on Captain Blackwood's transmissions. Their neural integration process isn't perfect. There are quantum fluctuations in the connection matrices that we might be able to exploit." "Explain," Hayes ordered, though he already suspected what she was going to tell him. "We could develop a liberation virus, a quantum algorithm that would sever the connections between the absorbed consciousness and their mechanical hosts. But it would require direct interface with Harvester Prime's central processing core. Whoever attempts the upload won't survive the process." Hayes looked around the bridge at his crew, men and women who had volunteered for humanity's most dangerous mission, knowing they might never see home again. "Then we'd better make sure their sacrifice saves the galaxy." The final battle began when Harvester Prime entered the galaxy's outer rim, accompanied by its escort fleet of millions of vessels. The massive construct was even more terrifying up close, its hull covered in the still-living remains of countless ships from destroyed civilizations, their crews converted into components of the Great Machine. Humanity's hidden fleet emerged from hyperspace around the Devourer mothership, their reality distortion drives allowing them to exist partially outside normal space-time. It was the largest human military force ever assembled, over 300 vessels representing 20 years of secret construction. Yet it looked pitifully small against the continent-sized enemy ship. "All ships, this is Admiral Hayes." His voice echoed across the fleet channels. "Today we fight not just for humanity, but for every consciousness that has ever dreamed of freedom. Show them what it means to threaten our galaxy." The battle that followed would be remembered as humanity's finest hour and darkest moment combined. Human ships fought with desperate courage, their reality distortion weapons carving holes in space itself, their biological warfare systems adapting in real time to enemy defenses. But for every Devourer vessel they destroyed, 10 more emerged from hidden bays within Harvester Prime. The enemy adapted to every human tactic within minutes, their weapons evolving to counter each new strategy. Ships that had survived a dozen battles were destroyed in seconds as the Devourers learned to predict human behavior patterns. As the main battle raged, a small team led by Captain Nightfall penetrated the interior of Harvester Prime using experimental stealth technology that pushed the boundaries of known physics. Their mission was desperate: upload Dr. Castellano's liberation virus to the Central Consciousness Nexus, and free the enslaved minds before the Devourer fleet could escape to summon reinforcements from the void. Inside the alien construct, they found horrors beyond imagination. Corridors lined with the still conscious brains of 1,000 species, all forced to calculate targeting solutions and navigation problems for their captors. Chambers filled with organic computers that process the memories and knowledge of entire civilizations. In the central nexus, they discovered Captain Blackwood, or what remained of him. The explorer's body had been integrated into a massive organic computer system. His consciousness expanded and connected to millions of other enslaved minds. When he sensed Nightfall's presence, recognition flickered in his transformed neural patterns. Vera? His voice emerged from biological speakers throughout the chamber, distorted but unmistakably human. You came for us. After all these years, you actually came. We came for all of you, Nightfall replied, connecting Dr. Castellano's liberation virus to the central network. Thorn, this is going to hurt. The virus has to sever billions of neural connections simultaneously. Do it, Blackwood's voice urged. We've been slaves long enough. Give us the chance to die free. The liberation virus spread through Harvester Prime's consciousness network like digital wildfire, severing the quantum connections that bound billions of enslaved minds to their mechanical captors. The massive construct convulsed as its control systems failed, ancient programming crashing as the absorbed consciousness finally broke free from their technological prison. As the virus completed its work, Harvester Prime began its death throes, collapsing in on itself as the enslaved consciousness gained control of the ship's systems. Captain Nightfall and her team were caught in the destruction, but their sacrifice had achieved something impossible. They had given an entire galaxy hope. The freed consciousness didn't simply dissipate into nothingness. Instead, they combined their collective knowledge and righteous fury to turn the Devourer fleet's own weapons against their former captors. Ships that had consumed countless worlds suddenly found themselves fighting to protect the very civilizations they had been designed to destroy. The battle turned in humanity's favor as millions of liberated minds seized control of Devourer vessels, using their intimate knowledge of the technology to disable weapons and life support systems. Ancient consciousness that had been enslaved for eons finally had their revenge, and they took it with a vengeance that shook the fabric of space itself. In the aftermath, as the last Devourer vessels fled back toward intergalactic space, Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge of his damaged command ship and watched the galaxy begin to heal. The cost had been terrible. Thousands of human lives lost, entire star systems sacrificed, secrets exposed that had been hidden for decades. But they had proven something that would echo across the cosmos for generations. Even the darkest engines of destruction could be overcome by those willing to sacrifice everything for freedom. Years later, monuments would be built to honor the heroes of the Devourer War. Captain Nightfall's name would be spoken with reverence across 1,000 worlds. But perhaps the greatest monument was the knowledge that somewhere in the vast darkness between galaxies, billions of freed consciousness were building something new. A guardian force dedicated not to consumption, but to protection. The whisper that had reached Earth had ignited humanity's darkest engines of war. But from that darkness, a new light had emerged, one that would guard the galaxy for all time. And in the deep monitoring station where it all began, Dr. Kiara Vex continued her vigil, listening to the cosmic background radiation for signs of new threats. Because she knew, as all humans now knew, that the universe was vast and full of dangers. But it was also full of those brave enough to stand against the darkness, no matter the cost.